Hi, welcome back to another video on the Shadowrun Returns editor. And if you've been following along so far, I think I said at the end of the last video that we were going to start doing some summoning points, and we would expand the rooms and place down some cover and things like that. Well, regardless of whether I said it or not, that's what we're going to do. So let's just jump straight into it with cover. Now I've expanded this room where the encounter takes place with these guards up here. And I've just dropped in some objects. And you can find these pretty much in any of the asset lists, but I think I took most of these things from tenements. And we've just got some crates and some pillars, and you'll find things down under clutter and under decor, but you can feel free to take from any asset pack and just start dropping objects into the world. And like I say, I've just done some crates and some barrels and some pillars and things. And these objects all have cover. And you can view this, you can toggle its visibility on and off in the toolbar along the top by checking this shield button. And you can see here some of these have medium cover, some have heavy cover, and there might even be some with light cover. Well, there aren't, but you can have light cover as well. Here we go, down here there's a cupboard or something with light cover. And that's done automatically by the game, you don't really need to do anything yourself. But if you're creating a particular area and you want particular cover applied to particular areas or objects that the game doesn't do for you, you can do that as well. And if we come up to our asset library, I'm going to filter to everything because I can't remember what pack it's in, but we're going to go ahead and filter down for invisible. The game will think, and maybe we'll have a little crash. No, it's fine. And once you search for invisible, you get maybe 10 different objects, and down the bottom we have heavy cover, light cover proxy, and medium cover proxy. And once they're down, I'll go up here and refresh the cover, and as you can see, heavy cover, medium cover, and light cover. And then you can just drag that heavy cover into any particular cell, and it will override the cover that is already there. You can see here I've done this already, and that should work absolutely fine. And while we're talking about props, you can see I've started populating the rest of the map with things as well. You're going to encounter a problem as soon as you start placing large objects down. And for the purposes of example, I will use a basic bookshelf. I'm going to go search for bookshelf, basic bookshelf. So this is an exact duplicate. If I drag this down and drop it next to the wall, and you'll encounter this as well, it starts getting eaten by the wall. The problem is the prop is bigger than the wall spaces and just the way they all interact with one another. To adjust this, you just need to fine-tune the placement. And so with the prop selected, I'm going to hold Alt and use my arrow keys on my keyboard. I'm just going to adjust him down and forward and up in such a way that seems like it kind of fits, and that would be okay for me. And you'll see the visual representation of the object no longer sits entirely within its own footprint. As far as humanly possible, you want to keep those two things lined up. You want to keep the object within the bounds of its blue grid, because that blue grid is the physical space that is occupied by the object in the game. You could, and if you fiddle with it in just the wrong way, you know, you could make it not really work, or make certain areas inaccessible to the player, and they wouldn't be able to see why, because it doesn't seem like there's anything blocking the area. But you know, you're going to have to fiddle around with it quite a lot to get things working the way you want. If you're doing this with posters and things which go on the wall, graffiti and so on and so forth, what you will find is that you want to adjust them upwards and downwards. And I'm going to hold Alt and I'm going to use page up and page down to adjust them in the Y dimension. Set them higher up or lower down on the walls. But again, you're going to use your other arrow keys. Excuse me. Why is that not working? There we go. To adjust them against the wall without disappearing inside it. Like so. So that's we've covered props, both in terms of cover and decorative. So that's fine. The next thing I wanted to cover was, or to look at, was lights. We haven't placed any lights in the world yet. And there are two kinds of lights in the Shadowrun editor. We've got point lights and ambient lights. Well, there might be more than that, but those are the two that are most important. Ambient light for any given scene is actually controlled, or rather for any given region, is controlled within the region properties. So if we select our camera region for this area and come over to the properties window on the right, we scroll down, an ambient light color. Now you'll remember, if you've been following along, you'll know what the interior of your map looks like, and it's kind of grey and bare and sterile. But if you select the camera region, come over here and change the ambient light property, and if we open up this button here, we get a color picker. And I've given it this kind of deep black, grey, purple color, and that then permeates throughout the entire map. And it immediately gives a very different quality to the space. It makes it feel more gloomy, and you can do a lot of things here. You can make it much brighter and more lifelike if you wanted it to look that way, or if you wanted to give it a blue light, it might look a bit more futuristic. But when the player is necessarily fairly removed from the action in Shadowrun because the camera is like way out here, and the actors are just running around, and we're clicking where we tell them to go, and it's difficult to get a sense of space sometimes. And I think giving an appropriate light, an ambient light to a place can help a lot. The other kind of light is a point light, and again in the asset library, I'll just search for point light. But in actual fact, if you load up all the assets without any search string, it'll be right at the top of the page anyway. And we can just drag these into the world. And actually, I've already done this. I'm going to drag one in, but it should be invisible when I do that. Yeah, so it's hiding down there because I filtered out lights. But I'm going to filter them back in again, and you'll see I've dragged in a few lights already. So once you've dragged a light into the world, again you select it and come over to the right hand side, and we can select its color. So we've got a light in the middle of that hallway. Let's make it a kind of mint green color. And I'm going to change. I'll leave its radius at 5. But I'll change its intensity to like 3, say. And when we go into the map, we should remember to look out for that. I've also placed some sounds into the map. And again, much the same as with lights, we have an overall sound for the entire region, and that's controlled through the region properties. So again, we select the camera region, scroll all the way down to the bottom, or almost all the way down. We have a lot of different options for how to apply sound in the world. The ambient audio is just the background hum of the world, and I've chosen Tenement Quiet, and that will play. There'll just be like I say, a background hum, but then there'll be like sparks and maybe people coughing and things like that. It just gives you a sense that a place is alive and not just this dead, sterile environment. Over the top of it, I have a default music, and I've chosen Hong Kong Sewer, and that is just the basic soundtrack of the level. And then beyond that, we have various types of combat music, and you get a few different puzzle pieces that you need to piece together. You have your base combat music, and then an intense combat music, and then some intro and outro stingers, and some wrap-up music. You can set all the thresholds for these. There you go. Combat intense threshold 5, combat wrap-up threshold 2. So what's going to happen is when we get into a fight with these guys here, the basic ambient music of this scene will transition to the lowest level or the lowest intensity combat music, and I've chosen generic intensity level 1. That's what int 1 stands for, I think. And that will loop endlessly as long as the fight goes on. But once the threshold for intensity 2 combat music is reached, then the music will transition, and then when the combat is finished, we'll have some wrap-ups and some little outros and things like that. And really the best way of showing that in action is actually just to load up the map and play, and we'll do that in a second. There's one other piece of sound that I've added, and that's down here. And much like with lights, if I filter everything out of the asset library and go to everything, right at the top, ambient audio node. Just drag it and drop it in, and it works the same as a light. It has a radius and a volume. And then you can, from this sound picker, you can choose an appropriate sound. And I've placed a sound in Barry's apartment that is the sound of a radio playing music. So, what else is there to show? Well, okay, I said in the last video we were going to make a shaman summoning point, and I've done that. It's over here. I'm going to filter out lights again so we can see what's going on. Now, a shaman summoning point is just a prop interaction. We could apply one to this pillar, we select him, come over to the hammer, and under the interaction type we would just go down to shaman summoning point. What I prefer to do, and what I usually do, is I put an invisible prop, so from the asset library, invisible, And you have here, for example, invisible prop non-solid. I would just drop one of those into the world. The player can't see it, but you can adjust, fine-tune its location as much as you please, and it'll be fine. And then with that, I give it the interaction type of a shaman summon. And when we give that interaction type, we get this box here. And since it's a summoning point, I've increased the interaction distance to 3. You'll remember in the base game, if you're summoning a spirit, you don't have to get right up close to the object interaction. You can do it from a distance. So 3, 4 is probably about right. Probably the most important thing, I've given it some rollover text as well, but the most important thing is the spirit that is summoned, its character sheet, its equipment, everything is controlled from within this interaction, and it's down here, the little chess man, which we're already familiar with from previous videos. And so I've given it a model, and there are 2 main, I think, repositories for spirits. They are Seattle Spirit and Hong Kong Spirit. And Hong Kong just has the more modern, up-to-date models, but they don't have the full variety. They don't have a toxic spirit. I don't know if Berlin has their own spirits. Oh, they do. Okay, so Berlin has some as well. You have to give it a character sheet, and each spirit has a base character sheet. They're quite powerful by default, and of course you want to give them some equipment appropriate. And I chose, it says Enforcer there, that's just default. I chose Spirit Toxic, F2, and then click the green button to give it the appropriate spells. And all the necessary icons and graphics and so on are created by this interaction. So once we go into the game, that Toxic Spirit summon will be put in that location. And I've just had some fun, and I put like some barrels over a puddle of water, which is also a prop. And then I put a sickly yellow-green light over the whole thing, so it hopefully will look a little bit like glowing toxic waste. Now, it's probably about time we go in and test the map. And I should say at the end of, or during the last video, we made a quest for Barry. And I didn't realise it at the time, but there is a gaping hole in the logic of our quest for Barry. And that is, there's nothing to stop us walking into this room and killing these guards and completing the quest before we've even been given it. Now, this is not a mechanical issue as such. The mechanics that we discussed and that we've implemented, they all work fine. It's just that I'm just a bad designer, and I didn't design around this problem. Although, I realise there's a problem, and now we can fix it. So this is all a process of making content, I suppose. So I'm going to leave you to figure out your own solution to that. But I'll give 2 suggestions. One is very quick and easy, and one is a bit more involved. And the quick and easy one, that's the one I'm going to implement, is we're just going to make sure the player can't go through this door until they've got the quest. And again, there's a few ways you could achieve that, but I'm going to go to the hammer and say prerequisite for interaction. The condition is evaluate the goal status. Kill Lone Star for Barry must be started before that door is interactable. Now that door will be locked, there'll be a padlock over it until we get that quest from Barry. And because this door, we haven't implemented the functionality to close the door again after it's been opened once, there's no way of us accidentally locking ourselves in or breaking anything further. So that's one way. It's perfectly functional, as far as I can tell. Another way we could govern our interaction, or this whole process, we could resolve it a bit more involved way, and a bit less railroady, would be with Barry's relationship integer and with these triggers. What we could do is have another trigger that says, or even we could edit the trigger we've already got, that says, once all these guys are dead, we can check for the quest which Barry gives, and if that quest hasn't been given yet, we could then have a 4th, or I think 5th actually, level of this variable with Barry, and then a 4th or 5th branch of conversations. We've got 4 branches of conversation. We could have a 5th branch that checks whether we killed all those guards before speaking to Barry the first time. And in that case, he might then say, oh, you already killed all those guys. I was going to ask you to do that. Here, have a reward, or something like that. And that would be probably a bit more of an elegant way to do it, a bit less railroady, which I think players generally like. But for the moment, I'm just going to block entrance to that room. And you just do whatever the hell you like. And I'm going to save. And I think we're going to test. We've got our props, we've got our music, we've got our sound. yeah, let's just go and test, and we'll examine all the aspects that we've put into the game so far. I'm going to hire a main character, 10,000 new yen. Fantastic. I've actually done one or two other things with this map. I was playing around with it this morning when I got up. But we might have to save those for a future video because this one's probably dragging out now. Just get into the game. And because we've got a shaman summoning point, we're going to want to take a shaman, but I'll just grab, like, Duncan will be our main character maybe. We want a fairly strong one because there's a lot of guards. So we'll take Duncan, we'll take a Gobbet, that, and we'll take a Ractor, and we'll take an Isabel. Let's try and make this fight fairly easy. That'll do. So, we come in, you can immediately see we've got some green light down there. That's fine, we've got the padlock over this door, we can't go in until we get the quest. We've got our bookshelf, which is not quite as close to the wall as I could like, but I think when you're designing a map, you can be too worried about these things. You can pay huge amounts of attention to one little detail that the player's eyes will just glide right over. We get, again, some things. Notice, by the way, the tone of the light in here is very different from previous times we've been in this map. It's got that gloominess to it because of that ambient light. Now, I've got all my sound turned down, so I'm going to turn the sound up a little bit, and I hope I get the balance right so it doesn't drown out my talk and isn't just too loud, but we'll see. I'm going to turn up master volume, and I hope that's not too loud, like that. And again, we've just got this basic background sound going on, so we're going to talk to Barry and get this quest. It's very quiet, but that radio music is playing here that we placed down. And again, we can walk into this bedroom. Oh, and here we can see this bookcase is beneath and by the wall. So that happens, we just need to adjust it. Poster on the wall, that's all fine. Let's talk to Barry, get our quest. Hi, I'm Barry. We'll go through. Yep, we're going to do the quest. Thank you very much. Objective added, kill no staff for Barry. Door is now accessible. We'll open the door and the fight will start. And hopefully you can hear the combat music has started. The volume is quite low, but hopefully you can hear it. And we're just going to run through this fight as quickly as possible. Now, as I start killing the guards, the intensity of the music will change, so just listen out for that. We're also going to summon this guy over here. But not in this terminal, because we haven't got enough movement. And note, by the way, also we have high cover, just like we planned. Let's see if we can... These guys, when they move, they should also take cover, so let's just wait and let them do that before we kill any more. Summon our spirit. Okay. And then we'll just try and kill a couple of these guys to get the music to transition. And I think you should be able to hear now the music has got a bit more intense in the background, and then as we kill this last guard, the whole thing should come to a sort of... it should naturally reach a conclusion. But we can't kill this guy. Oh, I hate that. So again, I hope you could hear that. The levels on the music, on the different pieces of music are all a bit off, and that background noise is real loud. That's probably a bit better. But all the systems are in play. We need to fine tune them and so on. So if you follow along, your scene should feel much more fleshed out and much more like an actual place where things actually happen. I'm going to mute everything as we go back out of the map now. Let's mute it all. So that's the content of this video, and all I'm going to show you so far. In the next video, there's something again I've already done, and that is I've created an exterior. And I'll explain this in more detail next video, but if you want to get started yourself, let me filter out the cover. If you want to get started yourself, you can find many of these pieces in the Baron's asset pack, which is up here on the top left. And I think for this building, it's a new camera region, which I've called outdoor, and I've renamed the other camera region to indoor. And then I've just used some sidewalk pieces, some road pieces, and then some building one pieces and the building one roof. And I've just laid out a template over here. The most important thing when you're creating multi-level structures in an exterior is that you adjust the vertical position with page up and page down. And when you first drag and drop these objects into the world, they'll all be on the same level. And I mentioned this because when I first started using the Shadowrun editor, I didn't realize that. And if I wanted one object to appear above another, I would just use like that. I'd move it horizontally, and so it appeared to be above the other object. That don't work. So yeah, you want to be using your page up and page down keys, and you'll need to. Lots of the pieces serve, for example, two roles. This edge corner here, this roof corner, is both these pieces just rotated. So again, if you want to get a head start and start making your exterior, making a new region, that's fine. I'll go through it in a bit more detail next video. And then what we'll do is we'll make a transition so we can go from one to the other and back again within this single scene. And then once we've done that, I was thinking maybe we'll go ahead and make another scene, like a hub, and we can transition between scenes, which is probably the main defining mechanic of the campaign, which allows you to transition from one level to another. And once we've got all those elements working, we've got most of the core architecture of making your own campaign from start to finish. So we'll be getting towards, I guess, the end of these videos. But anyway, have a head start if you want, or wait till the next video. Experiment with the systems we've looked at in this video, and I will see you next time.